Hey, Summit Chasers, welcome to another episode of Voices of Impact, the podcast where you learn strategies to amplify your influence, impact, and how to take action towards your own purpose and mission. Today, I had the honor of speaking with Tami Wilder, who is truly the heart and soul behind Positive Impact International. Through her dedication to serving those who are often forgotten, Tammy has lit the paths of underserved children and families, offering hope, support, and a safe place to call home. We speak about how we can all work to make a difference, no matter the scale, by leveraging personal skills and talents to foster change. This episode is not just a conversation, it's really a call to action in making the world a safer place for every child. Get ready to be inspired. It starts right now. Hi, Tammy. Thank you so much for being with me today. I'm so excited to talk to you about what it is that you're doing in Positive Impact International and really just dive into your story and what led you to where you are today. So thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. All right. Kicking us off, I want to talk to you about what your experience has been that led you to wanting to work with adolescents.
Yeah, so growing up, I grew up in England. My dad was a famous singer. So
Okay.
my parents always had us like doing service projects, and my dad would do loads of benefit concerts to support charities. And then I remember when I was 17, I asked my parents, I was like, I really want to go to Jamaica. So my parents were like, okay, you can go. But you got to serve in an orphanage for 2 weeks.
Wow.
And you get 3 days to hang out. And right, so they've signed me up with this youth corps, and I went. And my job while I was there was to sit in an orphanage. There was about 100 babies and maybe 3 workers,
Mm.
and me and the other kids that were there. Our job was just to sit there and rock the babies, and
Wow.
change them, feed them. And I just remember holding this one little girl and thinking, I don't know what I'm going to do in life, but whatever it is, it's going to be with children. Because I really
Mm.
just felt like just my spirit felt like I'm supposed to be here, right? So then fast forward, I led the youth ministry at my church. I, taught music and dance to kids. And so a lot of things I did just had to do with kids. And I noticed that there is a demographic of children that are underserved
Right.
in so many different capacities. So then about 12 years ago, I sat down with my family and I was like, we need to start an organization that serves underserved children and families. And even at that time, I wasn't sure what we were going to turn into 10 years later now.
Right.
But I knew that I just wanted to do something that we were serving the kids that just are underserved.
Yeah, that's absolutely beautiful. And what an amazing experience for you to have at such a young age. Actually, so when I was 16, I got in trouble. I got caught drinking a little bit in high school and things like that. And my mom was going to Mexico with the church that she was a part of, and she's like, "You have to come with me." It was over Thanksgiving break, and she's like, "And you're gonna go and spend time in the orphanage there." And I remember being like frustrated that I was having to give up my Thanksgiving break and all that. But I
Yeah.
got to this orphanage, and it was with um, kids with special needs, all ages. There were babies up to about 12 or 13. When I tell you that was one of the most impactful weeks of my life, just spending time with those kids. We cooked them Thanksgiving dinner, and you saw the joy that they had, and they weren't in the most amazing situation. And it really just shows you that kids are so resilient, and they will
Resilience.
try to make the best out of any situation that they're in.
So
But
true.
also, what can we do to make their lives a little bit better?
Yeah.
Or like what you're doing, like you're having a huge impact on these children. So once you experience that, I know you said, I think so 12 years ago is when
Yeah.
you decided that you needed to make a change and
Yeah.
actually get out there and do something on your own. So what did that look like initially?
So initially, we started a community center that any child could come. It didn't matter what your socioeconomic background was. It didn't
Mm.
matter, right? Any child come, and we had dance classes and art classes and music classes and creative writing, film photography. We had professionals come in from all those different careers and volunteer their time on Saturday and teach these classes to the kids. And it really gave them a creative outlet. And initially what it was for was no matter what you have going on at home, whether it is, financial situations Or we had some kids who had special needs. We also had some kids who had a family member who was sick. Maybe their mother had cancer, or another child in their family, were unwell. So a lot of the family's resources went towards the most needy child or
Right.
family member. So the other kids
Right.
got forgotten, but not on purpose, right? It's just kind of, so we did it where it was free. These kids got to come and be creative, and it was therapeutic. And for 3 hours every Saturday, they just got to be kids. And we had
Yeah.
families that had 10 kids, families had one, and it was really awesome just to watch kids just be kids. And you had
Right.
foster children, just, and nobody cared, and
Yeah.
it may have been, some of these kids came from homes where there was a lot of yelling and a lot of fighting, and just for them to be in a calm atmosphere. Then we
Yeah.
used to bring in therapists that would do some play therapy with younger kids, and then we would do trainings for the parents while the kids were in
Wow.
classes on just different things. Whether it was,
Yeah.
hey, I'm learning about autism, we'd bring in Spectrum to come and do a training on children with autism. And this is like that anybody in the community could participate in, whatever was going to benefit the whole family. That's how we started. It's not how it's we've evolved a lot
Yeah.
since then, but that was the initial goal. And it was kind of
Yeah.
like from that point on, whatever God saw as a needed, area for us to fill, that's what we were going to
Mhm.
do.
That's incredible. I love the aspect of actually spending time with the parents too, and giving them some resources and some support, because a lot of times, like you said, like these children are going through, maybe there's a broken home or just lots of fighting in the home or whatever it might be. So to involve the parents in trying to give them the support that they need to navigate those types of situations, and
Yeah,
then having the kids be kids and just be free and not worry so much. That's really
yeah.
amazing. I love
And I
that.
think one of my favorite things about that time was that, it's funny because I'm English, right? So my cultural perspective can be a little different,
Right.
being in America. And I feel like in America, people kind of stay in their bubbles.
Mm.
So sometimes it's not that people are selfish or don't have good hearts. They don't know what the needs are.
Yeah.
Or because that people are so segregated and in their bubbles, whether it be financial or racial or whatever, that they don't see how alike we are, and how,
Right.
when stress hits, trauma, illness, whatever, it doesn't discriminate based on if you're wealthy, then you don't have these
Yeah.
problems. Or so to have these families all have a hub where they would come together and they were getting to know each other. And some of
Right.
our families who maybe were a bit more well off would sponsor some of the things that we did to help with the other families, because they had formed a relationship with other
Right.
families that they never would have probably hung out with. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Outside of this,
Yeah.
there was something in different areas. There was something common that brought people together, and for
Right.
children to be like, we're no different. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like
Yeah.
we both like the same things. We have the same interests. So I really
Hmm.
appreciated just that element we've been able to bring,
Yeah.
because just whenever you see people coming together and finding their similarities versus looking at the differences, it's always a beautiful thing, right?
Absolutely. And it speaks to the power of that diversity too. And being able to understand and accept people from all walks of life, and knowing, like you
Yep.
said, just because somebody's wealthy, they're going to have stress, they're going to have struggles. Mind you, they're not the same as the people who might be in the poverty level or whatever that
Right.
might be, but we both understand what it feels like to be stressed, and we
Right.
all understand what it feels like to struggle through things that we're going through. And I think that that's that space for these people that wouldn't typically have interacted. As you guys have grown and shifted, have you been able to continue to blend those two things and continue to bridge that gap a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's always going to be one of our main missions, no matter what we do. We have preschool programs, we have a whole bunch of different things, but the always the common goal is to bring people together, and it's important for our parents to be brought together and to come
Mhm.
to put their resources together, but it's the example of the parents doing that the children are watching. And so it's kind of
Yes.
like, if you train the child now, this is going to be our future, right? So if we're
Hmm.
constantly focusing on making sure that it's a diverse group, and that kids are also being encouraged to be sensitive and empathetic and loving to kids with special needs. And so we
Hmm.
don't separate the classes. We may have, like in an art
I
class,
love
we
that.
may have a child that is autistic or has a learning delay or a developmental delay or whatever, and we may have assistants there with them, but they're at the table with all
Yeah.
the other kids because they're still a child, right? And I feel this because I have a nephew who's severe special needs, and if you talk to him, he doesn't see himself any different.
Right.
Like
Right.
he can laugh and he draws and he plays and he dances and he sings the same songs, and and watching kids connect through music, and then it
Yes.
not being so scary. So maybe when they're an adult and they see someone that's a little different or he looks a little different, they're not like, because they grew
Right.
up with kids like that. And like I
Right.
said, for me, it goes back to the way I was brought up. In England, it's just very different. You see
Yeah.
a lot of people, we do of people all the time. That was my normal. In America, it's easy to be segregated and kind of stay with what you're
Right.
comfortable. So I feel
Hmm.
like my secret motive is everything we do. It's like, how do we mix this up a little? You know what I'm saying? How do we
Yeah.
get people out of their
Shake it
comfort
up.
zone? How do we shake it up? Exactly. So
Yeah, that's
yeah,
incredible. I think that's such a good point too, because typically in the school systems out here, they will completely separate kids with learning disabilities or might be on the spectrum. So I think it's amazing that you're continuing to allow these kids to coexist and to recognize the strengths in each other and just to be more accepting of everybody
yeah,
in the state
for
in which they
sure.
show up. And I think that that's actually one of the beautiful things that this next upcoming generation, I live within the millennial space, but this next generation, I feel like, is really starting to do things differently. I feel like
Yeah,
they're starting to allow people to show up as they are and accept people as they are. And I think that that is going to do a world of good for everybody,
I
really,
agree.
because the more acceptance, the better, and just allowing people to be as they are.
Yeah, I 1,000% agree.
So, talk to me a little bit about the shape that positive impact has taken since you first started.
Right. So I was describing how we did the community center approach and really focusing on being a supportive resource for all families, especially
Hmm.
underserved. And then about 2 years in to us doing all of that, so about 8 years ago, National Safe Place had contacted us because we did have an emergency youth shelter in Gwinnett
Okay.
years ago that was here for about 30 years, and it got closed down. So we did not have an operating emergency shelter for children. And so National Safe Place had heard about us, reached out to our organization and was like, hey, because you're already connected in the community, would you be willing to become the licensed Safe Place agency for Gwinnett County and then about 50 miles north? So
Hmm.
if you're not familiar with Gwinnett, it's one of the largest counties. And we cover it's a lot of people. But so we said, yeah, but we did not have an actual shelter.
Yeah.
So we decided to do the host home model where myself, my family, friends, if you were an empty nester, you'd been a former teacher, therapist, whatever, we would say, okay, if you have an extra bedroom and you go through this training, would you be
Hmm.
willing to be a safe place house and take in a child
Wow.
who needs, emergency shelter,
Hmm.
is in any unsafe situation, they've been kicked out of their house, they've ran away from home, teen moms, I mean, you name it.
Hmm.
Would you be willing to take in this child while we figure out what's going to be their next permanent living option? And
Yeah.
so we did that for about 6 years,
Wow.
and it was challenging
Yeah.
because it also crossed into COVID, and
Mm.
at that point, people didn't want to just take in random children, right?
Mm.
So we struggled there with spacing, and then about a year and a half ago, we were able to apply for some funds, and we raised about $400,000, and we were
Wow.
able to open up 4 emergency shelters and transitional living
That's
homes
incredible.
for the kids that we serve in the community for emergency shelter basis. So we still
Yeah.
have all our other programs, and it's really cool because the kids in our Safe Place program also get to participate in all of the positive
Oh,
impact programs as well. So again,
yeah.
kids that have come from different backgrounds,
Hmm.
maybe they're not living at home with their parents because they're in our Safe Place house, but when they come to any of our activities, they're no different. And nobody's
Yes.
saying that's a Safe Place kid. They're just 16 year
They're
old,
just
15 year
kids.
old, 18,
Right.
whatever. And they just get to bring their talents and make some friends and for a few hours not focus on, the downside of,
Right.
of life, right?
Right. That's amazing. It's so incredible that you were able to raise those funds and create those spaces. But what I think is absolutely incredible is the fact that you opened up your own home and that you had friends and family that were willing to open up their own homes to these children and bring them in. So let's dive into that a little bit.
Okay.
How many kids did you host within your own home in those 6 years?
In our home, between Safe Place kids and also foster children, over 50.
Wow.
And that's not including our friends and family that did the
Hmm.
same thing. We actually ended up adopting two of the boys
Oh
that
my God.
we fostered. They were 3 and 4,
That's
so we adopted them
amazing.
about a year and a half ago. But yeah, I mean, and it's funny because I really believe in the best leadership is by example,
Yeah.
right? So
Hmm.
it's kind of like one of the things we do in our program is we train foster parents as well for the state of Georgia, and I'm never going to train or ask somebody to make a major sacrifice and me not do it myself. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like, I'm
Right.
not going to ask someone to clean our building if I haven't got on my knees and scrub that floor myself, right?
Yeah.
So I think that the best way for my mum and I, who we co-run the organization together, the best way for us to truly understand the ins and outs of this whole safe place program and dealing with underserved children is to jump in and do it ourselves, because then
Yeah.
you see what the kids need, because we're living with these kids, right?
Hmm.
So with now our house parents that we have in our safe place houses, they can never say you don't understand,
Right.
you know,
You're like, I
because
do.
we did this when we had no money, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And we were literally, we did not have a budget. We were having to, the groceries, everything those kids needed, that was on us out of our
Wow.
own, plus
Yeah.
our own children, and so I think that it gave me a really big appreciation for the people we
Hmm.
bring on board, because I know what it takes, and it's a lot.
Right.
It's not an easy job,
Right.
especially when you have your own children
Yes.
in the same
Right.
house and you're bringing in other kids, and me learning as a parent, how do I parent
Yeah.
my kids and these other kids, and there's you know attention, and just making sure that everybody has what they need, and
Yeah.
some of these kids need extra attention more than what my kids needed, but then my kids got
Yeah.
jealous, and so if the kids didn't get along, you know what I'm saying, like having
Right.
to figure that out. And so there's a lot of, it's not an easy road, but I
Yeah.
think that us doing it ourselves really helped us understand what we were getting into and what we were going to ask
Absolutely.
others to join us and get into. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I can imagine that that was quite the road to navigate, but speaks to how big of a heart you have for these children and for just wanting to do anything that you can to help them in their situation and help further them along and set them on the right path to be able to get the most out of life. So that's absolutely amazing. When you had these kids in your home, what was that like for your kids? You said at times like maybe they didn't get along or your kids were getting a little bit jealous. How
Yeah.
did you manage that?
To be honest with you, it was one of those things that we just learned along the way.
Yeah.
Um, because there were some kids that were a great fit with my
Hmm.
kids, right? So my daughters now are 16, 13, and then the boys that we adopted are 5 and 6, right?
Okay.
So big age gap.
Yeah.
But I would say for the past 8 years, my kids were a lot younger. So I feel like when
Hmm.
they were younger, it was easier,
Hmm.
because like if my girls were, let's say, 9 and 6, or whatever, they didn't really pay too much attention if I had a teenager in the house, because they weren't,
Right.
as long as so it was fine. But as my girls have gotten older, and even now with the boys, the challenges, the personality challenges,
Mm.
get in. Where we've had like one of the girls we had from Safe Place, like had gone through all of my daughter's hair products and had
Oh
used them
no.
all. So my daughter
Oh
comes
no.
home and she's like, she used all my stuff. But she knows that her and her sister, they have their own, things. But
Yeah.
this young lady was just kind of like, it's in the bathroom. Like, why can't I
Yeah.
use it? And I just remember having to, sit down with my girls and, teach them patience, grace, and
Hmm.
that things can be replaced. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying?
Right.
But like,
Right.
you know, looking at sharing in a different way. And I really hope that with my children, all 4 of them, that as they see me do this, and that they've been thrown into it, right? That they will be really compassionate towards people.
Yes.
And, even going into different jobs, you're going to work with people you don't like. You're going to
Yeah.
have to team up with people that you don't like. I mean, that's just the
Yeah.
truth, right? And I'm hoping that this gives them extra skills, extra
Mm-hmm.
people skills, where it's like you don't have to get along, but there's a way that you can coexist with each other. Then there's going to be times that you totally get along. And I think the other side of it is when my kids have really gotten along with other kids and then those kids have left because we
Yeah.
found another, and just that bond where they were seeing these kids every day, they became like their siblings. And
Right.
then, great for the child, we were able to find a permanent, solution for them.
Right.
And my girls have kind of gone through that grief, where it's like,
Yeah.
oh, why do they have to leave? Or the kids, why do we have to leave your house? It's not
Yeah.
fair. So I think that's probably been harder
Right.
than just balancing the character
Yeah.
differences.
Yeah.
And then me just having to divide my time and learning
Mm.
as a mom how to run an organization. Also, not just running the organization. And my mom would probably say the same thing because she was doing exactly the same thing. Had kids in her home while she was
Yeah.
helping raise some of the grandkids and help with my younger siblings. And
Yeah.
but I think it's just been managing time of running an organization, making sure I'm spending time with my children,
Yeah.
time with my bonus children,
Yeah.
time for myself, my relationship, and just having to figure out that I am still learning. I will tell you
Yes.
that.
That
That
is
I am
a
still learning.
balancing
Yeah,
act.
it's
Yeah,
a
that
lot.
is a balancing act, and you have so much on your plate too. But I think, like you said, your children, I know you said that you hope that they learn compassion. They are absolutely going to learn compassion because they're living in a situation where they're seeing their mom have such a huge impact on so many other children that they are going to be they're hand exposed to it. And you're already starting to shape that next generation too of
Yeah,
kids who are going to be much more accepting and open and
yeah,
potentially end up serving in a similar way that you are too. So I think that that's amazing for your kids to be living that firsthand too. They might not feel it all the time right now. I'm sure
right,
sometimes it's frustrating,
right.
but when they look back, when they hit like their mid 20s, maybe early 30s, they're going to look back and be like, my mom was so cool for doing that and for putting the time and effort into these other children. Yeah, absolutely. So one thing that I think is pretty unique is that you realized that you wanted to make a difference within hosting for Safe Place for Gwinnett County. And before you guys had that funding to be able to open up those homes, you were like, okay, I'll do what I have to do. I will bring the children into my home. So, what advice would you give to somebody if there's something that they really want to go after, but they don't necessarily have the means to make it work the ideal way or the way that they hoped that they could?
Yeah. I think that one of the biggest thing that I've learned is start small, right?
Mm,
So a lot of times we think we've got to do big things to make big impact,
yeah,
and everything has to start somewhere. So if someone was in a situation where they're listening today and they're like, "Oh, I want to do this," or I really
yeah,
have these ideas. It's like when people ask, "We want to volunteer. What can we do?" I always say, "What do you want to do?"
yeah,
You know what I'm saying? What do you want to do? So if people are asking us, they want to volunteer with the children that we serve. How do you want to volunteer? What are your skills? What talents? It could be somebody doing something as small as taking a child to learn how to drive. Let them
yeah,
drive in the parking lot, right? That's major actually for us. For somebody else that's taught all their kids how to drive, they could be like, that's nothing. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
Bring in frozen meals, different dinners. I'm sorry, my yard guy is blowing the lawn. I don't know
No
if you can
worries.
hear it. He's getting louder and louder. But yeah, cooking meals, teaching a child how to cook a meal, right?
Mm-hmm.
So again, these aren't huge. I just saved the world.
Right.
Action, but taking it a few kids at a time and
Mm-hmm.
figuring out, some people are really great at writing resumes.
Mm-hmm.
Or they've got really great writing skills. You could tutor a child. You could help them write their own resume, right? That
Yeah.
they've never had before. You could do mock interviews with them and just like you would do your own children, right? So I think that if people get out of their head that you have to do these major
Mm.
shows to be like, I did something great, I made an
Right.
impact. No, it's really just starting small, really looking at what do you want to do? Why do you want to do this? Because that would be my next question when people say, I want to get involved. Okay, how and why?
Yeah.
Because those are the two questions that literally answer your own question. Like if it's because I just really have a heart for kids. Or let's say it's elderly, or let's say it's veterans or special needs, right?
Yeah.
It's like, why do you want to? What's the why and how? And I think if we just continue to ask ourselves those questions, we'll see where our place is. And then it starts from that little idea, and then it can just grow from there
Yeah.
because it will be organic, right? I believe that even with our organization, I have so many more plans
Of
for
course.
where we want to go. When I
Yeah.
look at our business plan from 10 to 12 years ago of
Yeah.
what I thought we were going to do, I'm so grateful that we've been able to do more than I ever saw.
Mm.
But it wasn't because I just had new ideas. Organically, we followed the need. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, so
Right.
it was kind of like, we know we want to help. We know that we can start here, but we were open to what other areas, and there's still some holes that we want to fill.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see 10 years from now, you know what I'm saying, what the program looks like. But it didn't start from us having this big organization. It
Right.
really started with us doing 1 day a week, 3 hours on Saturdays,
Yeah.
open up to the community and just getting volunteers. Like,
Yep.
that was literally how we started. We
Yeah.
rented out a church that had like extra classrooms, and then we went to a daycare that also let us use their building on the weekends. Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, it was
Yeah.
really small steps. So yeah, I just encourage anybody who wants to do something and help to just start small and let it organically build from there. And you'll be surprised what God can do.
Absolutely. And that's such a good point too, because I think, like you said, typically when there's people out there like yourself who just really want to make a difference, they think, like you said, so big.
Yeah.
And it can almost become incredibly overwhelming to the point
Yeah.
where you're like, oh, forget it. I just won't do it.
So many needs. Yeah.
Somebody else will take care of it.
Yeah.
I'm fine. Like, I can't figure out how to make it work for me. But like you said, taking those small actions. So let's say somebody wanted to get involved in the nonprofit space and work with children. Go volunteer for somebody else.
Exactly.
Start
Exactly. Go
making a
learn the
difference
ropes.
there.
Yeah.
Yes,
Well, think
right.
about you and I. Think about how we both had very similar experiences as teenagers,
Yeah,
where our parents put us in situations where we had to volunteer,
yeah,
right? And in doing that, even though with you, you were like, oh, I've got to give up my Thanksgiving. With me, I'm
right.
like, I said I wanted to hang out in Jamaica,
Yeah.
like not work. But how once we got there and we were actually in it, in
Hmm.
situations that were bigger than us, right?
Yeah,
It planted a seed in us,
yeah,
right, to continue in different ways, but to have a heart like, how can I be a part of making a difference? How can I be a part of change? So I echo exactly what you just said. If you want to get involved in the nonprofit space, or you want to start one, go volunteer for one. That's
yeah.
very similar to and learn the
Hmm.
ropes, learn what they do great, and then learn what you would like to do different,
Exactly.
and then
Yeah,
start there, and sky's the limit.
yeah, absolutely. So talk to me now a little bit about the overall mission of Positive Impact International.
So it's funny because our mission has kind of changed, right? I
Okay.
wouldn't say it hasn't changed where it's necessarily different. It's evolved. Let me say that.
Mm.
So where we started off again, it's the same. We want to serve underserved families in whatever capacity you're underserved, right? And then adding on safe place. Our mission is also to make sure that every child, every child that we can help, it's possible for us to help, has a safe place to stay, that they
Mm.
have people in the community looking out for them, that no matter what their life circumstances are, that there is always an option if they want to do well in life and they want
Yeah.
opportunities, that there's always options for them to finish school, for them to have healthy meals, for them to be protected. Um, and so and so that's the overall mission, right? And if we do all of those things, all of our programs will start to make sense,
Yeah.
because they'll be supporting all of those different missions,
Right.
but definitely to just provide that protection, that safety, opportunities for children and families who maybe
Yeah.
wouldn't, I know that a lot of the kids we serve, I call them the forgotten children, 16, 17, 18, 19-year-old or teen moms, where people automatically will write them off. Your child that maybe is autistic and is coming from a troubled home and the family don't understand their kid, so they kick
Yeah.
them out. kids that have just been in bad situations, not of their fault, and they kind of get grouped in like oh, they're not going to go anywhere, they've
Yeah.
already ruined. And I think that as communities we need to do a better job, all of us, at making sure that we see these kids that are slipping through the cracks and
Yeah.
reaching them before they become adults, who now are a burden on society
Yeah.
because they were not given the tools. So now they're in our jails, they're on drugs, they're sleeping on the streets, they're involved in crime, or they go on to have their own families and they teach the same
Yes.
negative habits, or
Yeah.
they repeat a system and a cycle that isn't healthy, right? So if we can reach them in that really vulnerable age, which is, it's a hard to reach group, right?
Yeah.
Because teenagers think they know everything. So
Mm.
it's, but they know everything and they know nothing at the same time, and they need
Exactly.
that guidance. So I think if we as a community take on that responsibility in different ways, we really are helping our future and the
Mm-hmm.
stability of this next world, right?
Yes.
Because we're putting the time and investing in our kids. And I think that in the 60s, in the 70s, even in the 80s, I feel like community was very different. I feel like
Yeah.
people understood that, right? And I think over the past 20 years, it's kind of changed, and it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of like, not my problem. I don't see it. Not, but that doesn't make the problem go away. If anything, it
Exactly.
gets worse, right? So I
Right.
think that's why our mission is what it is. It's because we just truly believe that there's so much to be done, and it starts with protecting our kids.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That is beautiful. And you're right. That age is such a hard age, like you said, to reach, because they do think they have it all figured out, but if you can tap into them, they're some of the, like I was saying at the beginning, some of the most resilient kids, and they have been through it. And if they get shown that love and that support, they are so appreciative of it. And then you're actually able to watch that transformation right in front of your eyes, to see the
Yeah.
difference that you're making and that the programs are making in their lives. What are some of the programs that you guys are offering within Positive Impact?
Can you say that one more time?
Yeah, sure. What are some of the programs that you guys offer within Positive Impact?
So outside of all the arts programs that we do and we've been doing for years, we also have a financial literacy program for youth.
Okay.
So, and all of the kids in our Safe Place program, it's mandatory that they go through this, but it's also open to kids in the community. So we teach them about budgeting, about savings, credit, retirement, different investment things, balancing their account, right?
Yeah.
A lot of what's really interesting is a lot of children we found do not know how to count money backwards, count down change.
Interesting. Yeah.
And if you think about it, the way the world is coming, everything is digital.
Yeah.
So very rarely do they even have to encounter cash money. So
Yeah.
we do a lot of classes on that. A lot of therapy. We have a lot of different therapeutic group therapy, classes on anger management, conflict resolution, stress, anxiety, meditation classes.
Yeah.
We've kind of upped our, so we do retreats.
Mm-hmm.
We do a lot of therapeutic retreats, summer camps, then internship summer programs where we'll try and link our youth up with small business owners and just
Mm-hmm.
let them see kind of what the corporate world looks like,
That's
and
cool.
have them
Yeah.
go through a summer program. And if they're interested in that, a lot of our partners will actually give them jobs.
Wow.
We have
Yeah.
partnerships with women's clinics that will do parenting classes for our teen
Mm-hmm.
moms, also do the whole prenatal, postnatal health. There's a bunch of different things that we do. But
That's
a lot of the
amazing.
times,
Yeah.
depending on what our kids are needing, we have probably over 500 kids that come to Positive Impact programs, right?
Mm-hmm.
We usually have about 50 kids that go through our Safe Place, programs at a time. I like to tailor our programs to what the needs are at that time. So if
Yeah.
typically we have a lot of older children, I'm going to focus on careers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Employment, college, whatever their next steps are, housing, all that. If they're younger, which a lot of our Positive Impact kids, the community kids, are going to be on the younger side, then it's more like, what resources are the families needing?
Yeah.
Partnering them up with other nonprofits that will do groceries, that will do, rental assistance, that will help with medical bills, and just kind of figuring out what our families are needing and what programs do we either need to develop, bring back, embellish on, like make greater. And so, yeah,
That's
we're
amazing.
kind of like, we do kind of everything.
A little bit of everything, right? To just make sure
Yeah.
that they get set up to succeed and be able to hopefully break. If it's generational, sometimes in those situations it can be generational, but it's really cool that you guys are taking, it seems like a very custom approach to each of your kids and to the programs that you offer, and making sure that you're able to fully support them in the best way possible to help get them on their feet and out into this big world that is at times very scary to navigate. So it's so cool that you guys
and
are
the world
doing
is
that.
changing, right? So, what we needed 20 years ago, even with parents, like one of the popular classes has been being able to help children that are on the spectrum. The other popular class was technology. Parents not understanding acronyms or the apps that are out there, the safeties, safety precautions. So that, I would say 10 years ago, our parents weren't asking for those classes. But I think now, because as you were saying before, this generation are more open to talking about things that people maybe didn't want to talk about before, and kind of being like, no, be your own your issues. Let's talk about it. Let's have real discussion. So I think now I'm starting to see a turn in our parents where they're like, okay, I understand that I can maybe have not allow my child to have a cell phone, but they can go to school and get on their friends' cell phones. So I need to understand what this is, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, stay 10 steps ahead.
Yeah.
So that you can keep up with your kids.
Yeah.
So that's been something that's been an interesting, popular
Shift.
class that our people have asked for.
Yeah.
So
That's very cool. What have been some of the biggest transformations that you've witnessed in your children that have gone through this program?
I think one has been confidence booster. When you come from, and I say particularly I'd say for our community kids, which is like just positive impact, just the whole scope. I think that kids being able to watching these kids that come in, and because of the circumstances that they're going through, they're like this.
Yeah.
And for them to be able to learn creative outlet, or maybe at school they had no friends, but because of the culture that we try to create with them, they had friends at Positive Impact, and so watching them come out of their shell, and parents saying, they're smiling more, or, that we now found out that they're into art. So, now we have something to encourage her with, and, and, oh, you did great. Maybe they struggle in school, but their artistic abilities are amazing, right? So just watching kids come out of their shell has been awesome. I think with our Safe Place kids, it has been, which they are adolescents or teenagers. These kids have come from a lot of traumatic backgrounds. And I think that the common conversation is trying to help them understand that they're worth something, that they're not forgotten. When you come from a background, which I can't personally relate, but I've seen with the kids that I work with, they've been told that they're no good. They parents wishing they were never born, that they're just, we had one girl who, her father had sexually assaulted her, and he got locked up, and the whole family turned on her.
Turned on her?
Turned on her because he was the breadwinner.
Oh my gosh.
And so the mom now lost the house. And it was kind of like, if you had just kept your mouth closed. So she's carrying this guilt, you know what I'm saying? Of like, oh, did I ruin my family? And I think even with her, and that she's one of many that have the same type of story, her being able to see that, no, you did the right thing, and her standing up against her whole family. Do you know the amount of other children that are going through that you can show them that you rise above it? And she wants to go into the Air Force, and she is doing awesome. And, I think for her to see that she's meeting her goals despite what her family told her she would or wouldn't do, right? And we have many kids like that just watching them beat the odds is probably, for me, the most beautiful transformation. Because we see them now 30 years from now, 20 years from now, when they go through
Yeah,
adversities, they're going to look at, but I made it through this and I did it, they did it with help, but we really
absolutely.
try to empower them that they did it. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? They had to
Mm-hmm.
complete school. We gave them the
Yeah,
support, but they had to
right,
do it, right? They
right.
continued their therapy sessions. And then, teaching them ways to give back,
Yeah.
So I think watching these kids come in, they're down on themselves, they're depressed, they're not handling anxiety well, they're not handling stress well, they're coming in
Mm-hmm.
on medications, for them to be shedding that along the way and just
Yeah.
watching them turn into these healthy adults,
Yeah.
um, I think is like, if it was just one child, that would be worth all of this for me.
Yeah, absolutely. That's beautiful and infuriating. I started to tear up when you were saying about that poor girl whose family turned on her because of that. Like, that is just heartbreaking to hear that that's happening. But like you said, she's one of many. It's
One of
happening
many.
all over the place, all of the time. And I think to be able to lean in and just support these kids any way that we can. And they're not the forgotten children. They can't be the forgotten children. They're literally our future.
Future. Right.
Like,
Right.
we have to like jump in there and help and support these kids as much as possible. Wow, that is amazing. And I feel like I'd be a crying wreck constantly, just like seeing what these poor kids are going through. Like, children are so innocent and sweet and just full of light and love, and that often just gets taken away from them, and it
Yeah.
shouldn't be. And
Yeah,
so
it's
to be
true.
able to see all those kids who, like you said, just get to be kids when they come into positive impact and just enjoy themselves. And then you see the other side of it where maybe you don't get in touch with them so early and they're coming from those traumatic spaces. And you're like, all right, we got to break down these walls. We
Yeah.
got to try to show this kid that not everybody is against them and that they have every right to be here and to succeed and to thrive. And that has got to be an uphill battle at times, I would imagine, because they're
It is.
so hard done and they're so closed off. But
Yeah.
when you can get through that, so incredibly worth it to just see that turnaround.
Yeah.
So,
And I think that, for me, it teaches me a lot of patience as well, because I think that, and we've had to train our house parents in the same thing, is that a lot of our older kids that come to us at 16, 17,
mm-hmm.
um, they've gone their whole life only knowing one way. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? And even though we're trying to instill all this goodness into them, and confidence and self-esteem, and they're not going to get it like this, and it is
Right.
sometimes a battle. Sometimes they self-sabotage,
Yeah.
because they don't feel like they are worthy of a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the resources that are handed to them, and they will
Yeah.
self-sabotage it. And I think, in the beginning, I'm like, why would you do that? But realizing that this is all they know,
Yeah.
and just having that patience with them, because children are extremely resilient. And I just believe that every child can bounce back if
Yeah.
they have the correct tools, resources, support,
Right.
right? Any
Right.
child can get it together. And
Mm-hmm.
so, yeah,
That's amazing. One of the things that one of the questions you might have alluded to it a little bit, but doing this work, what have you seen has shifted for you and how you show up on a day to day, or what has been, I guess, the biggest impact for you in doing what you do?
I think that one, being working as hands-on as we do, I, I mean, I feel like my eyes were open before,
Yeah.
but my eyes have been opened in a deeper way about how many needs there are.
Mm.
And on my little soapbox, how our community and county are not stepping up
Yeah.
to meet the demand of the needs.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it is inside of me. I have a pretty fiery spirit, anyways,
Mm-hmm.
but I tend to get even more passionate when I feel like there's an injustice being done. When I
Right.
feel like somebody who cannot speak for themselves, animals, children, elderly, I'm going to say those are my three dear to my
Yeah.
heart, right?
Yeah.
And special needs, right? So I feel like when they're being ignored, or their needs being ignored, if things aren't being taken serious, it's right in front of our face, and we are not
Yeah.
actively like having call to actions,
Mm-hmm.
everybody hands on deck. I feel like a fire in me,
Yeah.
And I knew that about me, but as I would say, over the past 8 years, I've seen it develop more.
Hmm.
And some of it may come from anger because I'm
Yeah.
extremely angry that when these kids come to me and I hear about all the different things they had to go through first
Hmm.
before they got to our organization and
Right.
how adults have failed them,
Hmm.
it has made me more determined that I'm going to do everything in my power to try not to fail these kids in the way our
Yeah.
programs are set up. I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that they feel love, that they feel supported, and that
Hmm.
they don't feel like if they mess up one time, it's done. Because that's kind of
Yeah.
what the world kind of, think about it. You commit a crime, it's on your record. Even
Yeah.
if it was 10 years ago, people can be like, well, 20
Yeah.
years ago, you did,
Right.
And I think
Right.
that, grace is something that I've learned a lot about
Hmm.
more. We all need grace, all of us. So
All of
even
us. Yeah.
when I may have a child that may have broken our rules in our shelter, and I want to be like, you're done. Then I
Mm.
think about, depending on what it is they've done, I think about how many times have I needed grace?
Yeah.
How many times did I need someone to just give me that, just that extra chance, you know what I'm saying,
Yeah.
to
Right.
get it right? And so really trying to practice that, I think, has changed. And then I said the last thing is that I feel like in doing this work, I've become more aware, but also I really want to be more intentional about everything
Mm.
I do, everything I say. You know how they say people will forget what you say, but they also won't forget how you made them feel. Maya Angelou said that,
Yes. Yeah.
and I really believe that it's a feeling. You can't tell a child this is your home and they don't feel like it's home. You can't tell
Hmm.
a child we care about you, but you're always picking out what they've done wrong and
Yeah.
making them feel like they're on eggshell, or you can get
Yeah.
kicked out any minute. So I think being really intentional as a person with community leaders that I will work with, not biting my tongue and not being
Hmm.
afraid to be unpopular because I'm
Yeah.
going to talk about things that people don't want to talk about, and I'm going to
Yep.
call people out, the people that don't want to be called out, and I really
Yeah.
don't care. And I think that again, that is part of my character. But I
Yeah.
think in the professional world, you're trained to kind of
Hmm.
like,
To
oh,
bite your
this is
tongue,
not.
to sit
And I
back.
just
Yep.
decided this year I don't care.
I love
Because
that.
what I'm doing is not hurting anybody. Do you know what I'm saying? What
Hmm.
I'm saying is not disrespectful, it's not rude, but I'm
Right.
not gonna continue to work in this space and say that I'm an advocate for these kids and be silenced or, kind of go with the flow and let's sweep this under the rug. No, we're gonna talk about it. And like
Yep.
I said, I might not have very many friends afterwards, but no one's gonna say that they didn't know that these issues were around and that they weren't given
Yep.
the opportunity to join in and help. So I would
Yep.
say those are the things that I feel like, as for me personally,
Yeah.
feel like I'm evolving.
Yeah.
But it's these kids that are driving me to do it because you see their struggle, but then you see how great they are.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
I know for some people it's like I'm just talking about children, but when I'm talking, I've got pictures of, I've got faces in my head. Do you know what I'm
Exactly.
saying?
Right. Right.
So for me, it's very personal, and I'm fighting for the kids, but I'm fighting for these kids, any child,
Hmm.
but in
Hmm.
particular, I'm like these kids who I know have
Yeah.
gone through so much, and I know they have the potential to be literally amazing,
Yeah.
but they need someone to advocate for them, and so that's what I'm gonna do.
I love that so much. I love that you're taking the attitude of I don't care because you're right. You're not, what you're doing is actively helping. It's not hurting anybody. It's not, you might be opening their eyes to things that they wish they could have remained ignorant to. But at the end of the day, if things are going to change, if kids are going to be helped and supported, those things need to be brought up and they need to be brought to the forefront of
For
people's
sure.
minds because it's far too easy. It's similar with my conversation with Maureen when she's talking about suburban poverty. I was not aware of that prior to speaking with her. And it's like there are so
Yeah.
many things going on. And like you said at the beginning, it's so easy for us, especially in America, to stay in our bubbles, to stay
Yeah.
where we are comfortable. We're not
Yeah.
forced to take public transportation. We're not forced
Yeah.
to walk places. We have all these ways of just remaining within.
Yeah.
And I'll admit, I need to do a much better job of getting out of my bubble. And I'm about to because we're about to sell everything. We're actively selling everything. We're getting a camper trailer and we're going to be traveling for the next like 5 or 6 months. But
That's
we're
amazing.
it is, but I'm so scared. But I'm also like, I need to do this. Like I would have never done this before. So I'm going to be incredibly out of my
That
comfort zone and
is, oh
hopefully,
my goodness.
yeah,
That's so
hopefully
awesome.
just
Because think about it, when in life do you get that opportunity to really
Right.
go, and you're like, literally, we're selling everything, and
Yeah.
and I think the thing that's going to make it even more impactful is that your eyes are open. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
You're not just like,
Yep.
oh yeah, we're going to do this, and but you literally, where your heart is, where your mind is, where like you're open. So you're going to
Yeah.
see so much. You're going to learn so much, and I think that's a key. I always try to, like, when I pray, I'll say, God, just keep my eyes open, keep
Yeah.
my heart open, right? Don't let me shut things down or be
Hmm.
scared. It's even like, I know
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a lot of anxiety about stepping into
Yeah.
this new space, right? But
Uh-huh.
it's like, no great things ever occur without fear first, right? And it's
Exactly. Right.
pushing past it that you're like, and it's the same with me. A lot of times I feel like when I go into rooms of people that are, in the same space. That's how me and Maureen became friends, because
I
both
know
of
she
us were
told
sitting in a
me.
meeting like, what is this? This is
Yep.
crazy. And a lot of
Yeah.
my really good friends who run nonprofits, it's been the same thing, because we weren't afraid to
Hmm.
speak out. So think of the
Yeah.
amount of amazing people you're going to meet
I
along
know.
the way,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because that's going to be, listen, we have to do like a catch up where you tell
I
me about
know.
how we talk about your experiences, because this is awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we were wanting to go around like with Summit Chasers. We are very, very big on helping small businesses and kind of highlighting them. So we're hoping to meet really cool small businesses along the
That's
way, speak to
incredible.
them, and just be able to highlight them. But enough about me. My reason for bringing that up was just the importance of breaking out of your comfort zone and
Yeah.
opening your eyes to what it is that's going on around you, and finding a way to break out of those bubbles that we keep ourselves in. Even so far as like think about like AirPods, for example. You can turn on noise cancellation and literally have no idea what's going on around you.
No idea.
So
Which is
it's
a
just
lot
a
of the
matter.
kids that we
Uh,
serve.
yeah,
They have their earbuds in all the
all
time,
the time, right?
and they literally have no idea, no
Yeah.
social interaction. And that's
Yep.
one of the things we've been trying to work with them when we were talking about what other programs and things that we're
Yeah.
doing. That's another one. It's just like social skills, like,
Yes.
gone are the days where everyone sat around the table and ate dinner. You know what I'm saying? And
Hmm.
had to actually speak to each other and talk about their
Yes.
day. It's like, even I can catch sometimes me and my girls will be sitting around the table and they've got their phones up and they're
Yep.
eating and we're talking, but they also, their friends are there with us.
Yeah.
And it's
Exactly. Yeah.
like, it's become such a part of the culture now. And I think
Hmm.
teaching our kids, to be engaged, teaching
Yes.
like all the things that we've just been talking about, like teaching this next generation to look for
Yeah.
needs, look for ways that they can be influential in small or big ways, whichever,
Hmm.
because that's not something that is
Yeah.
really being taught.
Yep. And it needs to be, especially like, and to that note, social media. We think that we're so connected to everybody, but I feel like we've
And
never
we're
been more
not.
disconnected. Because now,
Absolutely.
right? Like it's like, okay, I see my friends on here, and I think that just because I see their story or I see their
I know what
posts
they're
that I know
doing.
what's going on. No, 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 not a chance. So I think
Yeah.
it's about what you said previous though, about being intentional. Be
Yep,
intentional
absolutely. What you
with,
put out there, what you want
yes.
people to see, what you don't
Hmm.
want people to see. Social media lets you control that narrative.
Yeah,
You can even
exactly.
control whether you want to hear what people have to say or not. I used to do that
Right.
a lot. I used to, because
Right.
of my mouth, I will post certain things and turn off the comments because I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't
I don't
want
want
your
to hear
response.
it.
I just want to say this.
Right. Yeah, but I think that we have to be so much more intentional because we
Yeah,
have social media in maintaining connections and learning how to, almost not learning, but for the younger generation, learning how to communicate with people face to
yeah,
face, how to interact, how to hold a conversation, how to make new friends and meet new
yeah,
people, because it's so hard now because they're just in front of a screen all the time.
yeah.
So
It's true.
it's amazing that you're doing, like, again, that full service for these children so that you can really help to shape them into well-rounded adults as they move forward in their life and start to go after their own dreams and missions that I'm sure that many, many of them have. So absolutely amazing work that you're doing. I've
Oh, thank
got
you.
two final questions for
Okay.
you. Firstly, what is an impact that you want to have made when you are gone?
That's a wonderful question. I mean, I think, specifically with what we're doing right now, there hasn't been a space for kids that, whether it's community, focused and an outlet, safe even if it's just classes, like just a safe
Hmm.
group, a place for them to go. And then also with housing and transitional housing for kids. So I hope that when I'm gone, we've built it up in this community and encourage other communities to adapt our
Yes.
model, right? I hope that everything we're doing now, that years to come when I'm gone, we're bringing awareness so that now it's not like a shock, like we have this problem, but that people are
Hmm.
prepared because we've
Yeah.
been, hopefully, we're small players in the game, but, like hopefully with the things that we are doing,
Yeah.
that, if I live another 30 years, that people will be able to say, yeah, there was this organization that wasn't afraid to go against the grain, wasn't afraid
Hmm.
to speak out, wasn't afraid to protect the kids that nobody wanted to even look at, right? That they came in and kind of set the bar.
Yeah.
And I hope people do greater things than what we're even trying to do, that they'll take it to the next level, that there'll be whole transitional communities for kids,
Yeah.
or, you know what I'm saying, for
Yeah.
opportunities created for our special needs kids, and that people will kind of adapt that responsibility, that these are not just someone else's kids, these are our kids,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, I hope people take what we're doing and do it 10 times better.
I love that. And that's such an interesting view too, because you don't often hear that you hope that someone takes what you do and does it better. But that's such a like down to earth, absolutely zero ego, just to be like, you just want these children to continue getting the support that they need and that you
Yeah.
you hope that it improves tenfold at some
Yeah,
point.
because we don't
I
have
love
all
that.
the answers. We don't have all
Right.
the resources. We're doing the best that we can with what we have, with the needs that are presented. And I feel like we're laying down the groundwork.
Yeah.
I'm always going to want our organization to do the best that we can and to take it higher and to keep evolving. But I know that if someone was able to take it from where we leave and just like blow it up,
Yeah.
by all means. I wish somebody
Right.
would come and work alongside us now and do it. You know what I'm saying? Because
Right.
we'd have some partners in the game that are doing
Yeah.
exactly what, so yeah, I mean that if I'm looking down and I'm like, look at all these communities
I
and
love
these kids
that.
we're taking care of, that'd be
Yeah.
awesome.
That's amazing. And then final question, what summit are you currently chasing?
So I would say the biggest hole right now is transitional living. So one is emergency shelter for kids, right? Very limited resources, and that we're doing. The hurdle that we're having is when these kids turn 18,
Mm,
19, 20, right? They can't afford to live anywhere.
hmm.
They don't have experience. They don't have rental history. They can't afford three times the rent. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like it's
Yeah.
almost impossible for
Yeah.
them to. And so I think that I really, our goal, our whole team's goal is to really focus on transitional living and having it set up for kids that after they leave high school or they age out of foster care, that they're not that I have anything against the military because I don't, but I don't think that should be your only option
Yeah.
because you have nothing else that you feel like, I don't want to go into the military, but they said they're going to pay for my school,
Hmm.
so I'm not going to have anywhere to live. So I think
Exactly.
showing these kids that there are so many other options and the community coming together with
Hmm.
jobs, with the right banking, community, and just all of the different
Yeah.
supports they need and helping these kids be set up and making it attainable. Because a lot of the
Yeah.
reasons why these kids end up getting in trouble is because they don't feel, they're like, I can never afford this. So I'll sell
Yeah.
drugs. Do you know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
I can never,
Right.
but think about, I know this sounds really funny, but think about a young person that's selling drugs.
Hmm.
The entrepreneur skills
Serious.
that
No,
they have,
seriously though.
right?
Yeah.
I'm not being funny. Like literally,
Yeah.
the fact that they will hustle, they
Yep.
are willing to go into dark territories. They're willing to talk to anybody. They're willing to make that money. Now, if we could turn that around and put
Hmm.
it in something positive, we
Right.
have future business owners.
Yep.
We've got leadership skills. Do you know what I'm saying? There's a
Yeah.
confidence that, and so, or you see the kids selling bottled water at the light because
Right.
in Atlanta it's a big thing, right? And
Yeah.
it's like I look at these little boys; they're like 8 and 9, and they're
Hmm.
selling a bottle of water for $1 at the lights downtown. And
Yep.
I'm like, these kids have a hustle spirit. Do you know what I'm
Absolutely.
saying? My kids, when they were 9, they were not trying to make
Yeah.
money. They were
Right.
trying to play with their friends. So I
Yeah.
just think that being able to support these kids in that next phase of life and
Hmm.
making ways for them to see that they can do it.
Yep.
Affordable living, HUD housing, having more transitional living plans and people really seeing that as that next step.
Yeah.
So for us, that's a big focus of ours because it's a big need. Right now, our shelters
Yeah.
are all full, but guess what
Mm-hmm.
they're full of? Kids that are 18 years old
Yeah.
because there's nowhere for them to go. So guess what? Because that's the case, we don't have room for the
Right.
15-year-olds, the 13-year-olds, that right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we've got to make sure that we have a plan to move on this
To
older
transition
group.
them. Yeah.
So that's literally our big focus goal
Yeah.
for this year. In like the next 6 months, is to open quite a few transitional living homes or opportunities for our kids to, and then looking at different models because it doesn't have to be one model. There
Mm-hmm.
can be so many different ways that we can get them to stability with housing.
Right.
And just being open-minded and being creative, whether we do tiny homes, whether it's
Yeah.
apartments, whether it's
Yep.
friends and families through churches that have a basement that they would rent a room, or,
Mm-hmm.
like where we know they're safe and just figuring out what works for these kids. If it's a child that's autistic, that's 18, 19 years old, and we have a family that maybe they had a child that was autistic or they've worked with
Right.
special needs, they'd be a perfect transitional home
Yeah.
for that child who's working a job, pay a couple $100, a month towards
Mm-hmm.
rent, but it's teaching them those next steps, right? So it can look different for
Yeah.
everybody. So did that answer your question?
It did. Absolutely it did. And I absolutely know with everything that I've learned just today from you that you guys will find a way to make that happen. And I'm excited to see it unfold. Tammy, where can everybody find you?
So we have a website. It's thepositiveimpact.org. But I will tell you that my favorite place to direct people to learn more about us is our Facebook page,
Okay.
mainly because our Facebook page, which is the Positive Impact International on Facebook, right? We post a lot of videos, a lot of real-time things. So like the website's going to give you background information and all that kind of stuff. But our Facebook page shows you the
Yeah.
programs, shows you the kids themselves, that them talking about how this is helping them or what things that they want to do, or kids
Mm-hmm.
meeting their milestones and graduating high school, or
Yeah.
just you really get an up close and personal look at the children from all ages, all the different programs we have, and all the
Mm-hmm.
things we've been doing, throughout the years and upcoming events. And so I'm like, the website's great, go to
Yeah.
it. But if you want to just kind of see more, go to
Yeah.
our Facebook page because we're constantly posting every few days new things
Amazing. Yeah, it's one thing to hear about it. It's a whole nother thing to actually see it
to
in
see
action
it.
and see, I'm sure, these kids just lighting up and coming into themselves through your program. So thank you so much, Tammy, for spending the time with me today. I absolutely love what you're doing with Positive Impact International. I feel like I said that a million times throughout this conversation, but truly it's incredible the reach that you guys have and what it is that you're working towards. So I wish you all the best of luck with it and just
Thank
keep
you.
crushing it. Keep chasing that summit.
Thank you so much for having me on your show. I'm always really grateful when we have opportunities to talk about what we're doing
Mm-hmm.
and just bring awareness.
Yeah.
This is not just a Gwinnett County issue. This is
Right.
a national issue. And in
Right.
all the different states and counties, a lot of people are having the same it's a deficit with our
Mm-hmm.
kids. And so I really appreciate you giving me the time to talk about it.
It was an
So
absolute pleasure. Thank you.
thank you.
And that wraps up another episode of Voices of Impact. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you found value in our conversation, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. For more inspiring stories and actionable advice, make sure to hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode. Also, we would love to hear your thoughts and takeaways, so please leave us a comment below. And remember, no matter where you are on your journey, you have the power to climb higher and chase your summit. Until next time, Summit Chasers, keep pushing forward and stay inspired.